I'm pleased this morning to have had the unique opportunity to serve on the Confirmation Committee and have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Becerra personally and to hear his story and listen to the answers that he gave us as how for his love for California, his defense of the California Constitution, his defense of those things that are right, that are just. And when we look at his background, it becomes very clear. I find it interesting that people talk about him as being an elitist individual, when freedom and justice and what is right in the defense of our Constitution and each and every one of us is not an elitist concept. It may be difficult for people to implement because they want to do other kinds of things, but fighting for what is right and what is just, even in the face of opposition, in the face of loss of economic opportunity, is what is right, is what is just, and it is not an elitist concept. It is an American concept. It is a California concept. It is a concept that we stand for in this House and that we fight for each and every day. I found it exciting because he is a man who really is the everyman concept, the man for these times. He comes from a background that is extremely humble. His family did not have access to educational opportunities. And I found tremendous identity with him, having a father who could not go to middle school like my father, a mother who could not graduate from high school like my mother. And yet, despite that, they taught him the values that are California values, the California dream, that if you work hard, you do what is right, you live what is right, you give to your community, you give to California, that somehow or another those things come together and create for you the success of life. But most importantly, you never forget from whence you have come. And you always reach down and you reach out and you bring up and you bring forward. We're going to face some difficult times, not just because of what's in Washington, but what's in this House, what's in the world, and the things that we face every day that challenge our values. I am honored to be able to support the nomination of a person who has basically done that all of his life, done that in Washington, and will continue to do it not because it's just a job, but it's what he believes in. And he wants to do the right thing, not only for himself, for his family, but for everyone. And so I am honored today to talk about, as I listen to the chatter about the things that are there. He never made any answer very simple. He didn't answer simple questions about the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, because those are complex issues that really talk about circumstances and time and what happens at each one of those times that really try each and every one of our spirits and our souls. We've dealt with the issue of religious freedom in this House and what impact does that have upon students who are in religious schools, and whether or not those schools are hiding behind the First Amendment and the Second Amendment in order to do the things that are unjust. And that reminds me so often, as my colleague talked about, who in the Little Rock Nine, how for an entire year, Little Rock, Arkansas and North Carolina shut down their schools because they didn't want to educate children of color. And the churches, the racist churches in those nations, opened up the schools under the guise of religion to educate white students, while African American students were not allowed to go to school. And so we understand the games that are often played, and I think he made reference to that. And some of you may not have understood it because you've not lived that history, and you don't understand the complexity of the issues that have faced this nation around those who seek to deny and to talk about the First Amendment, to use them for other means. But I saw in him a person who understands the complexity of life. And maybe I identify with him because we're about the same age. And he's been through the challenges, he's been through the war, he's been through the battles, and he understands what is fundamental, that there are some rights that are important for every Californian, and that those who have the least sometimes deserve the greatest amount of cover, but that all of us profit and benefit when that happens. So I rise and ask you to confirm the recommendation that we confirm Mr. Javier, and we send it on to the governor, that we affirm the nomination of Javier Becerra as our next Attorney General. Thank you.